Alright, so I am back, and now we're going to finish talking about some qualities. Know that the price of wigs may vary on the following. Typically, European hair is the top of the line, especially European virgin hair. This is the most costly. Color-treated hair is second in cost, only for the reason that it doesn't offer you that versatility to change it. Most manufacturers have their own process of coloring it, and you also want to make sure, is this actually colored with real dye, or is it synthetic dye, which is something totally different. You also want to make sure that there is no metallic dye, because if you get a good quality product, and I've been guilty of this, bought something in the salon before I was professional and I was custom coloring it for a family member. So I had my foil, right? I had my high lift hair color, and then the other one is I'll just bleach it a little bit. So as I'm putting the bleach on, I go to feel the foil after like 10 minutes, and I'm like, whoo, boiling hot. A little smoke was coming out of it, and I can almost hear a crackling noise. I open it, and the whole hair itself is bubbling. You can literally see the hair being skinned and destroyed. As I pick it up, the whole thing looked like a wet mat, and it literally, just from the weight, took the weft off the hair, and it went down in one big glop. The entire glop in there actually melted down to the inside of the hair, and it looked like, it almost looked like a booger. Like, that's how gross it looked. And there was like a little bit of pigment from that remaining melanin that was completely denatured from the hair. It was horrific. So always make sure that you get something that is not treated with metals. And I also recommend, when you first get your extensions and you're going to color them, you get some kind of mineral removing treatment. A chelator like Malibu Sea works just fine, but try other brands if you don't have access to it, because you want to get a clean base. Remember, when you're coloring, hair color is the only one profession that people don't think to clean the canvas. Think about when you're doing nails, you take off old polish before you put new color on. When you're going to paint a wall, you turpentine or you sand the wall. You don't just paint over something because you want to make it look good. You want to prime it. You have to treat your hair like a canvas. Also know that hair made from India and Asia are the two regions that provide most of the human hair that's commercially available. Indian hair is usually available in lengths from 12 to 16, and Asian hair is available in lengths from 12 to 28. Indian hair is usually wavy, and Asian hair is usually straight. Human hair mixed in with animal hair is next in expense. Animal hair may be Angora, which I do not know what that is. Horse, yak, or sheep. Yak hair is taken from the animal's belly, and it is the purest of whites. What you can do with the yak hair, it's typically used to make the fashion colors because it's so white, and you don't have to worry about damaging it to bleach it, and that also helps the color stay in better. Know that there are human hair that is mixed in with synthetic fibers, and that's the lower end of the totem pole. The mix is often half human, half synthetic. These wigs and hair pieces blend the advantages and disadvantages of both, and it could be a good option if chosen in the best color and texture of the client. So typically you want to match it perfectly. If it doesn't match, it's not going to look good. And always err on the side of a little bit lighter as opposed to going super dark, because if it's super dark, it may stick out like a sore thumb. So know that there's important questions to ask when selecting a hair addition for the client. If you're buying from a vendor, you want to know if it's synthetic, a mix of both, what quality the hair is the hair remi, is it colored, can I perm it, what are my limitations? Is the cuticle intact? Cuticle intact hair is more expensive because the hair has been turned. Turned hair is also called remi hair. It's when the root end of every single strand is sewn into the base, so the cuticles of all hair strands move in the same direction, down. The hair is in better condition, easier to work with because it doesn't tangle. Our lovely mannequins, Deluxe Deborah, that everyone hates, is fallen hair, which is the next example. It's the opposite of remi hair. It also knots up when wet. Because the hair is fallen on the mannequin, what happens is, one of the theories is that when we color our mannequins, right, when we do color, typically I tell you not to expect the best on a Deluxe Deborah, because on fallen hair, the cuticle is not going in the same direction. Fallen hair is actually the opposite of remi, as we've talked about. It sheds from the head, and they gather the hair, and then they thread it in different ways. You'll find the end of the hair sticking out, you'll find metals in the hair, you'll find everything in between. Sometimes you'll get little foils in there that you can hang the mannequin from. Because the cuticle is not in the same direction, you cannot expect the product or the chemical, such as bleach or color, to work correctly. This is why you will color or you will foil a Deluxe Deborah mannequin or any kind of fallen hair piece, and you might get either blockage of the product, lack of penetration, and you might even get a result where the hair looks like it's been balayaged in a bad way, or horizontal stripes. And this is dependent on so many things. Because the strands move in different directions, that will also cause tangling. It's less expensive than remi hair. But are you willing to, get a piece where you're gonna have to, constantly comb, and the combing constantly may cause it to snap and snag and break, and it may look really awful. So you want to know when you're working with the hairpiece, is the hair tangle free? If the cuticle has been removed, it means that you cannot condition the hair because it will tend to mat, let alone shampoo. When you're working on a piece that is fallen hair, I recommend, if you are going to shampoo to hopefully get a better result, use lukewarm water if you're going to use any temperature at all, or cold, and go in one direction. Don't shampoo the hair and mimic the natural scalp motions, because you'll cause a giant mat. So I also know, because it's hair that's been shed from a hair using a hairbrush, that the strength of the hair is not there, the integrity is not there. It's aged hair, it's hair that's either fallen out from the root or that just gets snagged up in a brush, and as a result it tends to feel a little bit coarser and less good. You also want to know that texture is very important. If you get a texture that is way too tight or way too loose, that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Can the hair be permed? If it has heavy metals, you do not dare want to perm it, otherwise it will smoke and get really bad and it will sizzle. You also want to know if the client's going to maintain their hair at home. Will the hair additions last a reasonable amount of time? Additions should last 4 to 6 months in a continued use. And that term is very vague, because I always wonder, do they mean installations? Because if you get an installation of extensions, that's going to last you about 3 months at the most. 4 months is really pushing it, because you have to get them readjusted as your hair grows out. A lot of wigs and hair pieces have a lifespan. You want to make them last as long as possible. Even good quality wigs, when they coat them with a protein coat, that coat will wear off and actually ruins the hair. I had a woman tell me at the wig expo I went to that the way they make wigs now is nothing like back in the day. She had a hairpiece on that was incredible. It looked amazing, it looked natural, and it was over 10 years old. So if you get a good quality piece, they can last. Know that a wig will be defined as this. A wig can be defined as an artificial covering from the head consisting of a network of interwoven hair. When a client wears a wig, the client's hair is completely concealed, 100% coverage. If a hair addition does not fully cover the head, it is either a hairpiece, which is a small wig that's used to cover the top of the crown, or hair attachment. The book even refers to some of the hair pieces as wiglets, which I think is pretty funny. There's 2 basic categories of wigs, cap wigs and capless. Cap wigs are constructed with an elasticized mesh fiber base to which the hair is attached. They are made in several sizes and require special fittings. More often than not, cap wigs are hand knotted. The front edge of the wig is made of material that resembles a client's scalp, along with a lace extension and a wire support that is used at the temples for a snug, secure fit. Hair is tied under the net, under knotted, to conceal the cap edge. The side and back edges contain wire supports, elastics, and hooks for a secure fit. Latex molded cap wigs are also available. These are usually used for clients with special needs. Capless wigs, also known as caps, are machine-made from human or artificial hair. The hair is woven into wefts, the same wefts we use in extensions, which are long strips of hair with a threaded edge. Rows of wefts are sewn into elastic strips in a circular pattern to fit the head shape. Capless wigs are more popular than cap wigs, and they are ready to wear and less expensive. Know that capless wigs allow the hair to breathe, so they're a lot better for the scalp. It's much healthier, especially if your client tends to perspire. If you sweat a lot, which is what we call perspire, it's a fancy word for that, you will get a lot of scale buildup, and you might get some pityriasis or dandruff, so that's always a risk factor. Actually, look up the old way of doing this. If I mentioned it before, I'm mentioning it again. Check out Miss Miko and her YouTube channel. She's a really good wealth of knowledge. And they explain the issue with the stocking cap weave, where people were putting down these caps, putting a wig over it, and just putting glue on it, not thinking the glue goes through. So when you rip it off, it's like ripping off a band-aid. Your sides are going to get thinner and thinner and thinner, and then bald. You might get a scalp infection, and also if you leave it on for a while, you'll get a buildup of scatula, which is really gross. So you also want to know that to understand the construction of a capless wig, compare a nylon stocking with a fishnet stocking. One has a closed framework, which is the cap wig, and the other is open, capless. Due to their construction and airiness, capless wigs are extremely light and comfortable to wear. In general, capless wigs are healthier. They allow the scalp to breathe. Know that a cap wig is best for clients with extremely thin hair and for clients with no hair, because capless wigs will allow a bald scalp to show through. So it's always important to be mindful of that, and you want to know when you have the wig on the style of it. If you have holes in it, you can actually see through if their hair is too thin. Know that today's wigs are well designed and fashionable, that many are bought off the shelf for immediate wear. Typically you'll go in a wig store and they'll have a wig ready for you, or you can call them up and send them a photo of yourself. I'm not going to go too much into the measurement section. The book tells you how to take measurements, but typically you're going to take measurements with a soft tape measure, not like a firm one. Measure around the head. They usually include, manufacturers will include how to take the measure, or if you talk to them on the phone, they'll send you over a link. Also know that typically you're not going to have to write to the manufacturer. This book is outdated. No one is going to sit there and write a letter and send a letter in. You're going to email them either online, and I'd even say, actually a lot of the companies will DM them on Instagram, give them the measurements, and then that will be the measurements for your wig that you can order for the client. Or a client may have to create their own custom profile, or if you have a software in the salon, you can enter their measurements in it, and that has your own custom profile. So technology, this is really revolutionizing what we're doing. There's different methods of construction. Hand-tied wigs, also known as hand-knotted wigs, are made by inserting individual strands of hair into a mesh foundation and knotting them with a needle. Hand tying is done particularly around the front of the hairline and the top of the head. These wigs have a natural, realistic look and are wonderful for styling. The hand-tied method most closely resembles actual human hair growth, with flexibility at the roots, so you're able to blow dry them better. There is no definite direction of the hair, and it can be combed in almost any direction, which is key. If you get a wig that is sewn in a specific way, in a specific growth pattern, do not try to cut against this pattern or you'll get a turkey look. Don't try to style against that, or you'll make it look like a wig, or make it look obvious that it's a wig. There's semi-hand-tied wigs, which are constructed with a combination of synthetic hair and hand-tied human hair. They're reasonably priced and they offer natural appearance and good durability. And there's machine-made wigs, which are least expensive, and they're made by feeding wefts through a sewing machine, then stitching them together to form a base in the shape of a wig. They have the disadvantage of wefting direction, which restricts styling options. Another favorable characteristic of these wigs is their bounce-back quality. Even after shampooing, the style returns, which is good for a client that is either elderly or special needs and they don't have the ability to style their hair to the best of their ability at home, and you're able to get something that is of high quality. Also, the book mentions, again, make sure you're aware of the artificial growth pattern. If you mess up on a wig, it will not look good for the client. I always think too, in this chapter, a lot of students, first of all, if you guys don't know what the movie is, The Witches, shame on you, go watch the movie. You have my permission to take the, whatever you're doing, drop what you're doing and watch this movie. It's really funny, actually kind of scary. When I was a kid, in the 90s, I watched this movie and I was scared out of my mind, but long story short, all these wicked witches, they wear wigs, and it's like pretty funny because they have a whole room full of like these actual actresses that have these wigs on and they're pulling them off. I don't know why I thought of it, but I don't know. So we talked about taking measurements. Know if the wig is ready to wear, no measuring is needed because it can be adjusted by tightening or loosening the straps that's in it. That's typically what the majority of the wigs are. This method is very old in the book. It's probably an outdated section. Back in the day, you had a custom order and it was a very complex process. You have to fill things out, send your measurements in, they'd send you wigs. I knew someone whose aunt, who when her aunt passed on, they were cleaning out the basement and they found boxes and boxes and boxes of wigs because they were huge in the 50s and 60s. You can also adjust the wig for the client custom, or custom sew it in a different way. Also know that if you're investing in wigs, it's important to invest in a block. So also known as blocking the wig, which is keeping the wig safe. You're not going to take a wig and just ball it up and throw it somewhere. You need a block. And a block is a head-shaped form. It's usually made of a canvas-covered cork or styrofoam on which the wig is secured for fitting and coloring and sometimes styling. And typically you'll use stuff like, you'll use T-pins is what they call them, and you'll stick it in there. T-pins are what I use. If you've had me in a class before, I use it to puncture my perm solution instead of snipping it off because it gives it a better spray. You'll fasten the wig on with T-pins. Some of them even get like a old stand. You can even use if you have a spare, not a podium, a spare, oh, I'm blanking on this word, tripod. If you have a mannequin tripod, you can put your stand on there, or you can put your wig on there, or get a screw-on one. Also know that one of the most important steps in wig service is instructing the client on how to put on the wig. You want to make sure that you're getting them to prepare their hair for the wig. If there's any special way to put on a cap, if they're wearing a cap over it. And this could be a client that is losing their hair, it could be a client that is preparing for a dance, or maybe someone who just wants a fun little style for the night. Teaching them how to style it. Retailing products is very important. Typically anything that is color safe is safe to use on wigs, so any kind of good color safe shampoo that is low in pH, that's a big thing. Go for something that's more acidic in pH because it will not ruin the hair. It'll keep the hair in good quality. It'll keep the color of the wig fresh. Know that canvas blocks are available in 6 sizes from 20 inches to 22 inches. You can attach the block to your work area with a swivel clamp, and this allows for greater control. However, today most wigs are cut and finished while on the client and then cleaned and stored on a drying rack. They also call it the wig dryer. We used to dry our mannequins in there. A block is best used for practicing on a wig. So, sorry, I had to go back to blocking the wig because I forgot to mention that part. But back on to working with the client in the wig. No, there's ways to cut the wig. You can actually create a small fold and sew the wig along the elastic. So cut and then sew like that, or clamp up like this and sew it in the back. So know that sewing the wig is it's a specialized art. Don't do this if you're not trained in it. Typically try to find the wig that fits good to begin with. You don't want the wig being too loose because it can go, or if they're driving with their hood down, the wig will go flying off, or if they are in a breeze, their wig can go in the air and they'll have to catch it. If it's too tight, it can cause a lot of irritation and it might be uncomfortable. Know when you're cutting the wig, you want to make the hair look more realistic. This is why I say, and I use this with caution, don't always go for the precision cut because if the hair is too precise and it looks too perfect, it may look fake depending on the material. Know the material, know the skill that you have. Also try to make the wig look a little bit undone without looking disheveled and ratchet. You want to make it look, have a little texture to it. You don't want it to be like pin straight where it's like obvious it's a wig. Hair has various lengths, so layering is ideal for wigs. Know that hair that is 1 month old and hair that is 1 year old exist on the same head, so the stylist should try to achieve this natural look through layering. So taper the ends when cutting the wig. The more solid the shape, the more unnatural the hair will look. Know when you're cutting and trimming the wigs, follow the basic methods of hair cutting. What you may like to do as well is actually do dry cutting, because with dry cutting there is no surprises, so invest in a good pair of dry cutting shears so you can go in there and really fine tune it. So if you're doing freeform cutting, always work toward the weight. Vertical sections create lightness, diagonal sections create rounder beveled edge, horizontal sections build heavier weight. So you always do a visual approach. Make sure you're cutting small sections, observe where the hair falls to get a good idea. I love the carg shears for thinning because you're able to go in there and really take out weight, and it increases the look of the hair and it gets good texture without making obvious lines. Be careful how many blades your thinning shears have, because if it's too few and it takes out hair in the wrong directions, what happens is you might get an unfinished look that looks horrible. Also be careful with razor cuts, because that can actually ruin your wig if you're not careful with that. What I'm going to do here is we're going to break here, take your 5-minute break, and when we come back I'm going to finish up on the cutting. We're going to talk about styling the wigs, coloring the wigs, and perming it, and we're going to talk about hair pieces.